Afternoon, VC. Dave here. So this is going to be a video I've been meaning to do for quite a long time. Um, and it just so happened that a gentleman on one of my Facebook groups today posted these albums, the CD versions of them. And so I pulled these records. I had not shown them on this channel. I got them, I think, back in March. And I've been trying to recall exactly how the whole topic of these records came up. I believe I was speaking with Teddy on the phone, and I want to say we were discussing Andrew Cyrille, the absolute monster on the drums. And Teddy was very adamant that I seek out these records, make sure and get all of them and listen to them in succession. And he told me a lot of good information about these records, which of course I've forgotten. Starting to get old and forgetful. And there's a lot of important things historically about this project involved with these records. Honestly, this is a video that somebody like Henry Louis Gates Jr. should be doing and not me. I don't know if I'm going to do these records justice as far as, you know, everything that was involved with them and the story and the history behind them. But I'll do my best. So these are from the great clarinetist John Carter. Brilliant Los Angeles musician, composer. And we have this suite of records that to me isn't, you know, now that I've gotten them and listened in succession, it's definitely essential if you're a jazz collector or a jazz, you know, if you love jazz music. And so the first in the series is the John Carter Octet, Dowie. And this is on the wonderful Black Saint label from Italy, released in 1982. And we'll show you the amazing Black Saint label, one of my favorites in jazz. And this is a mint copy. I was very lucky to find a few of these records at Walk Street in Atlanta, just down the road. And big group, being an octet. John Carter, of course, on clarinet. Bobby Bradford on cornet, underrated. I have some really good records of his. Red Callender tuba. I'm not a fan of the tuba, as you well know, but he works very well in this group. James Newton flute and bass flute. Charles Owens soprano, sax, oboe, and clarinet. Get some good low end out of that oboe. Speaking of low end, you have Roberto Miranda on string bass here. Wow. I love his style of playing on the bass. Very unique. He appeared on a lot of great Nimbus West recordings. His solo album on that label is absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend it. William Jeffrey on drums. Louis Peralta waterphone and percussion. So Andrew Cyrille doesn't appear till the next record, but this is still fantastic. The waterphone, you know, being a native instrument to Africa, and this word Dowie is an ancient African goddess of music and the arts. And what it says here on the back, in some ancient African mythology, Dowie, or Dawei, was the goddess of happiness and is said to have held forth with all the regal expectations of a goddess, watching over her subjects with thoughtfulness and providing whatever godly assistance necessary for their happiness and well-being. We dedicate this music to the goddess Dowie and the happiness she spread. So you have that vibe. There's some intensity here. It's, you know, there's free jazz elements. There's avant-garde, soft dance on the B side, the mating ritual. You know, you have, you know, some of those, some of the roots of African music tied in here with this, and kind of the beginning of the journey, the beginning of the story, right? So that's what you have there. Great playing from all the musicians. And I'm not sure what happened and why this was on Black Saint in '82, and then the rest of the suite moved over to the Gramavision later, Gramavision label later. But that's what happened. Maybe it was a contractual thing. Maybe he couldn't get the funding behind it until he had the help of the New York State Council on the Arts. The National Endowment for the Arts got involved, it looks like. And so this was commissioned by the New York Shakespeare Festival, New Jazz at the Public series. And you have the next in the suite, Castles of Ghana. And this is probably my favorite of these 5 records that I'm going to show you. So 1986 Gramavision. I'll show you the label. The lineup does change quite a bit now with this particular release in the series. There's the Gramavision label on this one. A beautiful copy. It was still in the original shrink. And these weren't very expensive records at the time back in March. I can't even imagine what they go for now, just only a few months later. Things are kind of out of hand. Imagine these being on Carolina Soul would be a free-for-all, but John Carter on clarinet, Terry Genois on violin, Marty Ehrlich on bass clarinet, Bobby Bradford on cornet, Bakita Carroll on trumpet, Benny Powell trombone. You now have Richard Davis on acoustic bass, and now Andrew Cyrille enters the fray on drums and percussion. We got some moron outside revving his motorcycle like anybody gives a damn. Anyway, the entire mood changes here because now you get into the whole story of the Africans being moved to the castles of Ghana and these forts along the coast to be sent to the U.S. in the slave trade, and into the islands and everywhere overseas that they were sent, and yeah. Songs like Theme of Desperation and Capture on the B-side. And the playing is phenomenal here. John Carter, in his playing, he's very unique with the clarinet because he can get free, but he keeps the tone just fantastically throughout. So there's Castles of Ghana. Of course, the next part of the journey and the story is on this record, Dance of the Love Ghosts. This was released in '87, recorded at the end of '86. And of course, so this is about the actual journey on the boats. And you have a song like The Captain's Dilemma, and it gives some information under each of these names of songs. It says, on The Captain's Dilemma, it says, sometimes the captains and officers of the slave ships required more than the submissive passage from some of the female passengers. Records reveal these impositions were met with great objection. And I can see that, how they would tear women away from their families on these ships and maybe not even to return them. So a lot of folks maybe didn't even make it the whole journey across. It's absolutely tragic. And there's more intensity on this record. The lineup, there's a lot of changes here to the lineup with this record. You add Fred Hopkins now on bass. Of course, Andrew Cyrille is still here throwing down on the drums. But a key addition now to the group is Don Preston on synthesizer and electronics, throwing in a whole other element into the music. And you also have the Ashanti drummers here, adding vocal and more percussion, and just fantastic. So yeah, Dance of the Love Ghosts, where they're coming over on the ships, and this artwork, it's I think it ties into the whole part of the journey. Very conflicted. Yeah, so the suite continues. Of course, now the part of the story is the slaves have made it here to the States and are put to work in the fields. And so you have John Carter Fields, another wonderful cover. And on this one, It has a nice photo of him. He was later on in his career. Of course, he would pass in 1991, just at the completion of this project. I think the last record came out in '89, so he left us this amazing work. But yeah, now the lineup it stays solid now. So you still have Don Preston and Fred Hopkins and Andrew Cyrille, backing all the horns. And you have a song here on the B-side, Children of the Fields, that is broken down into 3 sections. And his grandchildren, he got 4 grandchildren, all appear on vocal on that track, which I thought was very cool that he brought them into the mix in with this story. So there's Fields, fantastic playing, all the musicians still. And then the last in the series is Shadows on a Wall, because the story doesn't end there, obviously. The slaves were given their freedom. A lot of folks moved north to find work. But, still found life very difficult, especially in the streets of the big cities like Chicago. And you have a lot of that reflected in this record. City Streets is the name of a song, 52nd Street Stomp. But it does end with Hymn to Freedom. So a song of hope for the future. And there's a good dedication here by John Carter that is the last thing that's written on this record. And so it says, this composition is dedicated to Mimi, a sweet mom who had the love and sensitivity to encourage, the wisdom to know that each generation must use the step already prepared for it by the one before and make its own step for itself in preparation for the generation to come, and who had the perseverance after a hard day's work to be patient with the ramblings at all hours of a young mind in search. Her spirit lives. John Carter, August 1st, 1989. So, yeah, this suite is amazing. And then this record here, you add gospel musicians and singers, and Bill Marshall on organ. So yeah, just you add that whole element in with the music. Fantastic. Again, essential in jazz, I think, now to seek these out. I'm not sure. There weren't many copies available at the time. Again, they weren't very expensive at all. Not many people know about this Gramavision label or show records from it that I've seen. So maybe you can get out there and find these records, but I recommend getting them all and listening to them in succession, as Teddy recommended. Hope everybody's well out there. Take care. Peace.